Hello! 10:32, it just hit. I'm two minutes late and I need a shave. My wife is going to watch this and say you should have shaved. But I ran from one thing to another. So today, just for those, talking of guitars, look at this. This is a shredder guitar. I got this, I think I got it for $200 or $250 off of eBay. It's called a Pacifica 921, and Christian Vey, you know Christian Vey, he's the guitar player that Glenn uses a lot, Glenn Fricker uses a lot, and he's in one of our courses, and he's a great kid and a great guitar player. Sorry to call him a kid, he's 20, he can be a kid, and he set it up for me, so look at the action now. It's like insane. So it's like a total shredding guitar. So now I've just got this guitar for shredding, and it's got a Floyd Rose on it as well, which I don't use, but at least it's got a wangy bar in case I need it. Is that a Floyd Rose? Yeah, it's a Floyd Rose. Had to double check because I was saying it. Would have been really embarrassing. But yeah, so there's this crazy shredding guitar that I've got now. So we're definitely, as we're doing, we're going to talk about guitars today. And as you know, I'm a big Yamaha fan. And those of you that know me know why. It's because I'm all about the democratization of the music industry. And this is Andrew. He's bringing me a cup of coffee. Come on camera, Andrew. Look at that moustache. Look at that fine moustache. Look at that. I need to grow one of those. Kasia will not let me grow one of those. And that's okay. I don't know if I'd look good in one of those. I'd actually look quite silly, let's be honest. But Andrew wears it well. Me, not so much. But anyway, so two things. Just want to talk about this. So I had a really good call with the San Francisco Chronicle today. They're doing a story on YouTube, and they interviewed me and asked me some questions about my experience on YouTube, which of course has all been incredibly positive. And I think it's a wonderful thing because it's brought together this incredible community. Hello, Oliver says hello to Andrew. Hi from France. Yes, it's definitely a shredding guitar now. And so a couple of things. So a very, very good conversation about YouTube and the democratization, and how we're really enjoying the process of what they're doing. You know, there's a little bit of talk about, you know, because they're going to start doing paid subscriptions for people on music to watch music. I actually don't have a problem with that. I don't know what you all think there. I think that with the music industry, the way it's going, if there's a way to monetize for some people who want it, I think that's great. I think I'm actually a fan of Spotify. I know it's not hip to say that, but I actually love Spotify. I think it's the best thing ever. So, and I love YouTube for that ability as well. We had a bit of a discussion about the proliferation of the slicker videos, sort of going against what was great about YouTube at first was this, what we're doing here, which was this ability to get to people and talk and have a really, really great conversation, and sort of freedom and democratization of it. And now there's a sort of move towards these really, really slick, highly edited videos that aren't necessarily by people that, you go and watch, you can watch 10 videos on omelets, on how to make an omelet. And now you can make your own really slick version of how to make an omelet, having never made an omelet before, because all the other videos are out there. So we talked about a lot of the way it's all changing. But what I do love about the live streaming is it keeps the live streaming keeps the spirit of YouTube alive. So I just wanted to say that. And, you know, really thank everybody here, because this is a big deal. So with that in mind, would you please like and share so that everybody knows we're live? Because not everybody knows we're live. If you could do that, that'd be fantastic. And because to me, live streaming is the last and the best bastion of what YouTube is about now. I really realize this because it allows us. Because when you first started watching YouTube, it was great because you had people with like a crappy little camera. You remember back in the early days, and they would just talk about stuff and show you things, and if it was like recording, they could show you all the stuff they did and stuff on a screen, and you knew that the information you were getting was first-hand and honest. And I think that live streaming allows that. I highly recommend live streaming for those of you watching that have your own channels. You know, live stream, because when you live stream, you can answer questions in real time. You know, you can really show people that you know what you're talking about, and you can really allow them into your world, and you get to see the personality. You don't get to see this controlled, you know, highly edited environment. Don't get me wrong, I like edited videos to get to the point, but I feel like this is a great thing. I'm really enjoying doing the live streaming for this. All right, so how is everybody today? Are you all doing marvelously well? Is everybody fantastic? Bless the notification bell. Oh, yes. Oh, and if you're not already, is that another Yamaha behind the space shuttle? No, it's actually an Ibanez Micro. It's a 3/4 size guitar, and I have two of them. I have a pink one and an orange one. The pink one is for my wife, and the orange one is for my son. And they're just little 3/4 guitars. Enfield, Peter from Enfield. Marvellous, says Michael from McDSP. Yes, I do have a lot of gear. It's okay, but it's not... How do I talk and shred at the same time? Well, a lot of this, when you're doing this... So everybody's good? You're all doing marvellously well? A lot of this is just like when you're doing this kind of stuff, it's just... You know, you're in this sort of place where you can, you know, it becomes reflex. And to me, it's like I was doing this interview and I was playing triplet chromatic runs like this. Just to keep my articulation going, you know, because it's important. See, this one I'm picking every single note, and this one I'm pulling off. So all that is, it's just a chromatic run going down just to get my articulation together. Between that and doing fast arpeggios, you know, but not 100%, but you're getting there. Yeah, well, anyway, getting back to the reason why I mentioned the Yamahas. I love the Yamahas because I like democratization. I like affordable equipment. And I talk about it all the time because I didn't really grow up with, you know, my father was an incredible man, an incredibly talented artist and painter. And like all of us, we have wonderful, you know, wonderful people in our lives. But we didn't have any money, you know, it was feast or famine, you know. So I love affordable instruments because also I want to encourage you to get out there and make music, you know. And it's, if something is like $10,000 and you feel like that's the only way you're going to be able to do your job is with $10,000, that's just not right, you know. My first guitar was a homemade guitar. Sweet pick on an acoustic. Yeah. There you go. I haven't warmed up to Sweet Pick on the acoustic, but there you go, Scott. That was just for you. All right. What kind of paintings did my father do? My father was a realist, so it was like, you know, realistic paintings. Somebody's saying something, guitars were starting at $7,000. Yeah, I love my Revstar too. Oh yeah, the Yamaha bass I have up there, the BB, is breathtakingly good, and I think it's $600. You know, it's $600 and just sounds amazing. Okay, so let's do some questions. Tika says, I'm recording a band that are like the Foo Fighters, has an SSL 4000E, mics 57s, 421s, 58s, 87 CQ12, KM100s. What mics and timing mic do you recommend? Amp is a Marshall. I would obviously start off with 157 and take it from there. You really, it's kind of a benchmark, and it's not, I'm not a snob, and I don't, you know, but I would start off with 157 on the cone, on a 412, and then see what you need to add. If you want to do the Friedman technique and do the double miking, try that, but start at least with a 57 and pull it up. The 57 is a nice high presence lift. If it's, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I do know guys that use large diaphragms on guitar amp mics, and that is perfectly fine. However, I would start with a 57 and just see where you've gone from there. As ever, please like and share. And if you haven't already subscribed and you're watching, please subscribe. And that would be absolutely fantastic. And I have had 3 cups of PG now, and now I'm on a cup of coffee. That's after my PG tips, by the way. What do I feel about using electric guitar and EDM? Absolutely. I think it's absolutely fantastic. All right, so let's talk guitar recording. A 57 is a very quote-unquote generic rock and roll mic. It is used predominantly on snare drums and predominantly on electric guitar amps. Now, that's not to say it doesn't get used for handheld microphones. That's not to say I haven't used it on acoustic guitars. In fact, Mark Ender called me once to compliment me on an acoustic guitar sound, only for me to tell him it was recorded with a 57, and he said, I'm not surprised 57s sound great on acoustic guitars. And that's Mark Ender, and those of you that know me know that I hold guys like Mark Ender and Spike Stent in very high regard, having had them mix my material and both been blown away massively by it. So, you know, those are really, really a big deal for me. So then, with that in mind, you don't have to have a 57. The characteristic of a 57, first of all, one of its biggest defining characteristics is it is indestructible, relatively. I mean, I go to studios that have 57s that have been there since, you know, since the dawn of time, since the 70s, and they're still working. That is the #1 reason why they get used a lot, is they're incredibly durable. Now, of course, like anything, they can be broken, but they have a history of being microphones that will last forever. There's other microphones that have that same thing as well. It's not just mutually exclusively 57s. But ultimately, an SM57 is essentially a very, and this is not a bad thing, but a generic dynamic microphone. So what does that mean? What that means is if you happen to have a Bayer dynamic or an AKG, you know, dynamic microphone, or you know, any particular mic you can think of. EV, Electro Voice used to make, in the 80s, made some, and early 90s, made some incredible. The 257 is so cheap. The ND257 with a neodymium capsule was a great, bright sounding, aggressive, very loud microphone. You can pick those up on eBay for pennies, for much less than a used 57. These are all these microphones have different characteristics, but they're all dynamic microphones that you could use on a guitar amp. The 57, the reason why we like it is because it has been used and it dominated for so many years. What do I mean by that? What I mean is your ear is tuned into hearing a 57. A 57 on a snare drum or a 57 on an electric guitar amp is so prevalent and has been on so many records that it's what we associate with a good guitar sound or a good snare drum. It doesn't mean at all that there is not other microphones that could do the job. So don't hold yourself back. If you can get like a used EV, I mean, I could look it up now. Let's go. Let's go online in real time here. I'm going to go eBay just to give you an idea. eBay.com in real time, and I'm going to put EV 257. And some of you are probably doing it faster than I am doing. Electro Voice 257B cardioid dynamic microphone, clip and bag, $17.95. That's what it's at the moment. There you go. That is at, and obviously it will rocket up in price if you all go and bid for it, but that's the only one I'm seeing. But you understand my point. That is a good sounding dynamic microphone. It's mid-rangey and loud, but that would be good on snare drums and good on electric guitars. It's an ND257. ND257. I remember when those came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and they were great substitutes for, and I mean, even like, there's tons of Electro Voices in here that are all affordable in that kind of price range. Tons and tons and tons. That just happens to be one. I'm looking at 86s, 96s, 76s. I mean, the point is like, and it doesn't just have to be that particular one. The point is like, you have a lot of options when it comes to recording guitars. And because you can get cheap dynamic microphones, you could actually amass 3 or 4 different ones that have different characteristics. And the great thing about starting at the source is that that becomes a way of EQing. So if you have 2 or 3 different cheap, inexpensive dynamic microphones that could take a bit of abuse in being dropped, and most importantly, high sound pressure levels, you could sit there and you could, yes, people are talking about the Sennheisers there. You're talking about the E-series, those are great as well. Those are quite affordable. Yeah, so there is a lot. People are saying Beta 57s, yeah, they also have neodymiums. There's a lot of different, there is a lot of different options out there. And the thing is, if you have access to a few, it's a quick and easy way to get a guitar sound. So let's just say you've got your amp up there and you throw it on and it's a little too dark. If you had like a neodymium capsule, like a Beta 57, or any one of those ND series, the EV, and they made a 257, a 357, a 4, a 5, a 757, they're all pretty inexpensive. Just look them all up. If you put something like that on, which has a bit more mid-range push, you might put it on and it might give you a better guitar sound in seconds for $20 worth of microphone. You get what I'm saying? This is where the creativity in guitar recording and production comes in. It's just having a few tools and knowing how to use them. And I humbly believe, with all of this debate from people about phase and polarity, and talking about EQs and how that affects it and the way they're seeing the waveforms, they're having all this discussion. Well, you can throw that discussion out the window if you simply have a microphone that has a characteristic sound that can do what you want it to do. Or, in other cases, a microphone that maybe has a high-pass filter on it and gets rid of that unwanted low end that you don't want. Those are really, really good. Yeah, some people don't like the, somebody's saying here doesn't particularly like the mid-range in the neodymium. That's a point. It's like you might not like it. I would have a 57 because of its presence lift, the 3 to 5K kind of area, but I would also have a neodymium on a guitar sound that was like this. And it was all really muddy, and the amp and or the speaker or whatever it was didn't give you what you want. Remember, as a producer and an engineer, sometimes it's your job to capture what the artist does without messing with it. What does that mean? That means I have been in many, many situations. Think about it. Think about me. I've been blessed. I've recorded Joe Perry, Brad Whitford, Ace Frehley, Slash, you know, all these big famous guitar players, and 20 others as well. But those are like big, you know, Joe Perry, Brad Whitford, Ace Frehley, and Slash. I mean, as far as like current rock stars go, there's not many more famous guitar players than that. You know, throw in Eddie and a couple of others and you've pretty much covered it. You know, of the classic guys. And if their guitar sound is their guitar sound, that's their guitar sound. Now, if you want to shape it subtly, they want to hear their guitar sound. So be aware of that. If Joe is standing out in a live room and he's got a super bright guitar sound, I'm going to capture it naturally. But if I want to have an alternative, maybe I'll throw up a ribbon mic that doesn't have quite the high end and pull it back a bit. That's a good trick. And it allows you the ability to blend in what they want to hear, what is good for them, and what you need. But it's not your job always, especially when you're working with those guys, to walk over to their amp and completely change their sound. Because if they're inspired by a particular sound, it is your job to keep their inspiration and their performance going. This is part of production. Guitar production and mixing tricks. This is what we're talking about. So it's part of your job to do that. Now, if you go to Cameron Webb's discussion where Cameron was talking about working with Lemmy and Motorhead, he had to blend the fact that Lemmy loved a Marshall head, Marsha it was called, he dropped the 2 L's, took them off, so it was called Marsha. And Lemmy's bass sound was, it was this pure distortion, high end, had no huge low end. But it was Cameron's job to capture that sound and also dial in some lows. And quite often, and this happened with every person who worked with Lemmy, they would split the signal, and sometimes they would capture a DI or often capture a SVT with a bit more lows and mids in it, and then blend it in to get what they needed and what Lemmy wanted. That is a producer's job. It's not your job to go over to his amp and change it all up and tell him he's wrong and humiliate the artist, or she, you know, humiliate the artist. That's good production. Good production and good mixing is also that same thing. Many times I've been given stuff to mix and it's not stereo guitars in the choruses. It may be as 3 parts and they sort of complement each other, but they don't allow the mix to get bigger. So I'll go to the rhythm in the second chorus and paste it into the first and then pan it wide. And that, I'll send it to them, and if they like it, I've just helped them out. Now, I'm not criticizing their production, I'm helping their mix. And these are the things that we know. We have to be respectful of our artists and we have to keep their vision, but at the same time, as professionals, we need, or just as people helping people in their careers, we need to give them the results that they want. And it's always that fine balance. It's not our job to humiliate our artist. You know, people sometimes send me questions of like, when an artist doesn't know what they're talking about, how do you deal with it? You certainly don't become confrontational. You need to be supportive in what you do. You need to support them, and you need to find a way of getting the best out of them in that situation, and then giving them what they want and what they need. This is what's important, what they need. It's all about just getting the best performance out of your artist. I would much rather have an amazing guitar part, an amazing performance, over the world's most highly captured, perfect stuff. So when we get into all these massive forum discussions about how, you know, John or Fred or Frida or whatever didn't know how to record, it doesn't really matter beyond the performance, because people don't buy boosts or cuts at 3K. They buy amazing performances. They buy great songs. Hence why every now and then a song comes out which defies all logic of recording. Engineers get all critical about how bad that was recorded is, but it then becomes a massive hit, because quite often everything that's wrong about what we do is right about what we do. So remember that. So I think for me, 57 is definitely a benchmark way of recording guitars. However, if you do happen to have other dynamic microphones, like the neodymiums, they have a mid-range characteristic, which is quite nasal and abrupt. But it could be very useful for you in certain situations. And bearing in mind that one on eBay is $17.95, and there will be others equally pretty cheap, it's not bad to have that in your arsenal. Have a microphone that you could just quickly throw on there to give you that mid-range extra articulation when the guy or girl who's playing guitar doesn't have it in their performance. There's nothing worse than going up and changing a guitar player's sound so dramatically because and them not feeling inspired. Guitar players in particular, speaking as a guitar player, pride ourselves on having a connection to what we're hearing. You know, here's another story that Don Smith told me, and it's going out in public. Don Smith, God rest his soul, one of the greatest engineers that ever lived, told me, and I may have said this in the academy, so I'm giving it away on live stream, told me that when he was, you know, he did Main Offender, he did all the Expensive Winos, all the Keith Richards albums, he also did a couple of Rolling Stone albums. He told me that Keith used to love coming in with different guitars and different amps and different pedals. He's a guitar player. He loves to experiment. But part of Keith's sound after Don working with him was the sound of a Champ. And it was the sound of a 57 on a Fender Champ. And they said that that was an amazing guitar sound. So no matter what Keith would bring in, they would always split the signal and print that Champ. And that's Keith Richards. There is probably not a more famous guitar player at this moment. So basically, Keith would come in with a boutique handmade amp they'd put it in a room, they'd mic it up, they'd record it, but simultaneously on another track, they'd always record the champ. And then they would have the option and they'd play the two, and, you know, Keith would get what he would want, and he would get what he would want +1, because then he would get the option of hearing the champ against the boutique amp. And he might just go, and he said invariably, of course, Keith would go, oh, that's cool, that's good, that handmade amp, but my champ still sounds amazing. That's a great example of an amazing engineer and producer, Don Smith. Look him up, he's incredible. Unfortunately, he died a few years ago, and he was a great mentor of mine in the late 90s. I made a record with him and learned so much. Very ahead of the curve, was using vintage kind of stuff when everybody else was thinking very differently. He really knew what he was doing, and his drum sounds are unbelievable. Listen to all of the Keith Richards solo stuff that he recorded with Steve Jordan, playing drums. You'll be blown away by how good those drum tones are. No samples, straight to 2-inch tape, absolutely amazing. Main Offender itself is one of the best sounding albums ever recorded and mixed by Don Smith. Anyway, so that's how professionals work. So it's getting that balance. You know, not everybody has that situation where they can have the 2 amps going or whatever, but it's a good metaphor on guitar production. Guitar production is twofold. Number one, and most importantly, making sure that your artist is happy. That's the most important thing, because if they're not happy and they're not inspired, it doesn't matter what you do. You know, you can get like rake stuff and retime it in your DAW. You can chop up their parts and timing it, but there is nothing better as a guitar player, you know what I mean, plugging in an amp and going and feeling it, rather than them going because they hate the sound. So give them what they want, and then your experience comes in and you do those things. You put the second microphone up, you split the signal, you print the DI, whatever it is. And it's not your job to like point out to them, oh, you know, I've heard guys do this, and guys predominantly do this. Yeah, well, your guitar sound was okay, I suppose, but I printed my own one. That's not your job. That's not who you should be. You need to be there to inspire your artists. So number one, production, is to make sure the artist is inspired. They get what they need. Number two, you get what you need. You get what you need, and most of the time, those two things are linked. 99.9% of the situation, they are linked. However, be prepared. Printing DIs is a great example. Print a DI. It's also a great use to print a DI because it allows you really good editing. Okay, I think we should do our first giveaway. I'm sure Matt... No, he hasn't texted me any ideas. Matt, are you there? So let's do our first giveaway. The McDSP's back on. Hey, Michael. Thank you for coming back on. We don't arrange this. He comes on and does these giveaways with us for free. So thank you very much, McDSP. He's going to give away a copy of the 4020 Retro EQ. We're going to do 3 giveaways. 3 giveaways. So let's just start with a really, really dumb question. That's a different Matt. Oh, Matt says, I'm here. Hardy ha ha. All right, good. Okay, so let's start off with a really, really dumb question. You get what you need. Yeah, that's right, Adrian. I have a really good story I'll tell in a second while the questions are coming up. So we'll start with a really, really dumb question. And we've probably asked this before. Oh no, because we were talking about drums. What is your go-to mic? And it can be a 57, and that's okay. What is your go-to mic for recording guitars? What is your go-to mic for recording guitars? Let us know what is your go-to mic, and you will win. You're going to win 3 things. You're going to win 2 recording courses, 2 mixing courses, sorry. The Love Me I'm Rich one, the Mixing in the Box course, which for Academy members is actually free for those of you who are in the Academy. That's completely free with all of the tracks. You can win that. Secondly, the Mixing Classic Rock course, and both of these are mixed in the box. So these are going to be for anybody and use a lot of stock plugins and a lot of McDSP. Throw that in there. So you can mix that, and you can also win the 4020 Retro EQ for mixing your guitars. Sterling Audio, I saw that, 57s, 421s, a lot of rock guys I know like those. 609, that's a good Sennheiser. Royers, C1000s, a Pile 57 clone. I'd like to hear that. How much is that clone? Yep, there's people with a fractal. Oh yes, and if you don't have, so that everybody can be involved in this, because everybody has an opportunity to win these courses. If you don't use a mic, just tell us what you do use. If you're using emulations or simulations, you can tell us that as well. This is an opportunity for everybody to win. And Meets, like Anita says, my mic is invisible. Santiago says, can you send me a mix? I don't have time to do mix critiques outside of the Academy. The Academy is only $17 a month, and it's only $169 a year. It's going to go up. It's going to go up to $27 a month very soon. So please, please join in. I do mix critiques and stuff, and we do a lot of stuff inside of the Academy. An M88, 414s, DIs, ribbon mics, Sterling Audio ribbon mics, Amplitude, FL Studio, T-Bone fractals, Kempers, more 57s, more 57s, Blue, Mark Hoffman, you won two courses and a 4020 Retro EQ. Kempers, great. Guitar Rig app on iPhone and record on my PC. Nice. Mark Hoffman. Well, congratulations, Mark Hoffman. What did you use, Mark Hoffman? Was it a 57? What was it? What did he use? I can't scroll up. Can somebody tell me what Mark Hoffman won? Not what he won, sorry. What did he use to win? Don't worry, we're going to do 2 more giveaways before the end of this YouTube thing. So, let's talk more about the what we talked about with 57s and with miking and stuff in general. Now then, we talked about using open-backed cabs. Can you, Andrew, is there any way you can grab that little tone tubby? I don't think it's very big, is it? Or more importantly, yeah, here we go, great, thank you. So, thank you. And a microphone would be great. So here we have the tone tubby that I use a lot. This has a hemp speaker. This one's called the Winterland, for those of you that are interested in knowing. And here's a 57, thank you. So there's the center of the cone, obviously, in the middle. I tend to do this at a slight angle. I don't know if you can see that. And that faces across it. Now, a lot of you have asked how I back mic. Well, when I back mic, I'm doing the exact opposite. So what I'll do is I'll get in there and I'll find an area here. You see where, can you see it? See there's actually the cone I'm touching. So I'll mic where I can see it, like it might be here, it might be there, and then I mic exactly opposite. So what does that mean? That means wherever I can see the back of the cone, so I've got my microphone, so there's my cone, I make sure that the other mic is, yes, you guessed it, opposite, like this. So when the cone moves forward, this mic is seeing it like that, and the other mic is seeing like that, meaning that this one, the polarity is flipped. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So that's how I double mic. Now, somebody asked me yesterday, actually, on our guitar production and mixing tricks video yesterday. They asked me about that with Alice in Chains. That is specifically what we were doing with the bass one. Good question, Alex. I'll get to that in a minute. So what I do is on the back one, I reverse the polarity, flip the phase, reverse the polarity. This is a very contentious subject. Everybody says, some people say phase, polarity. I always say both so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. And but you understand what I mean. You reverse the polarity. So waveforms literally, instead of going up, are now going down on the back one. Hence, the speaker is going this way. This microphone is seeing the speaker coming towards it. This one's seeing it go away at the same time the other one. So you flip the polarity so they both see the waveform going the same direction. Now, I personally will blend those signals in an analog world. That's just me. And that can be, actually I don't do it on the console, I don't do it here. I will do it on my Canac console, or sometimes I will sum it. You can do it digitally inside of your DAW. With the Friedman technique that, you know, that Ulrich Wild likes, he uses, because of Static X, I believe, he uses a little tiny Mackie or Behringer mixer. And a lot of you have seen that. If you're in the Academy, we did something with Glenn Fricker talking about that, which Glenn learned because he met Ulrich Wild with me, and we introduced, and Ulrich described the situation. With the Friedman is that double mic'd 57. Now with the Friedman technique, you tend to get a bit of low-mid cancellation between the two capsules when you blend them together. And that gives you a very, very heavy rock guitar sound, because you get a lot of really good lows and a lot of really good high mids and highs, and it gives you that huge guitar sound. There's something about that technique alone which automatically gives you that guitar sound. So if you're looking for that huge massive kind of low lows and high highs, there's something about that ugly mid-range area which seems to just kind of get removed. It's quite miraculous. It's not 100% removal, but it definitely shapes the guitar sound. You know, that's one of those things. Now, getting back to the 57 front and back, remember the capsules should be, as far as you can, opposite each other. Now, sometimes open back cabs don't allow you enough access to get exactly, so you might end up like this or like that. But ultimately, flipping the back microphone's polarity, reversing the phase, whatever you want to call it, will give you the effect you want. If you can, blend it analog. If you don't have an analog way of blending it, you can print the two independently, if you like, or you could go through two auxiliaries and blend them to one input. Whatever you prefer. I would say while you're still learning, maybe print them independently and then blend them. But the great question that was asked of me yesterday was to do with Alice in Chains, because Jerry Cantrell had actually mentioned that's what Dave Jerden did. So it was a really, really good question, because it's talking about what we were talking about the other day, which is the double miking. Because it's a Dave Jerden trick, and he did it on all of those Alice in Chains records with the small cabs, using 1.8, 110, 112 cabs. A lot of the smaller microphones, smaller speakers, sorry, and then double miking it like that. Yeah, and Anita's saying her amp is a half open back. Well, you can still do that. You can put it around the back and you can flip the polarity if you want. You can print it independently and then move it or time adjust it if you like. Ultimately, not every amp is perfect and doesn't have, the Tone Tubby is designed specifically as an open back cab. It's a really, really good cab. It's a good question. What do I think of virtual amps? I think, what do I think of, virtual amps? I think that they're absolutely fantastic. I think we're moving into a world where those are going to become very, very amazing, and they're only getting better and better. And watch this space. We're going to do a lot more on that. At the moment, we're concentrating specifically on miking stuff, but we're going to talk a lot more about virtual amps and emulations and simulations. It's really we're going to get into that. So 50% of volume, I think it's to taste. Remember, you're going to get more low end from the open back cab and a lot more low mids, which can be good, but might not be. So I personally probably end up with the front mic about here in volume and the back mic about there. It's usually around about 2/3 it sounds sweet. Sometimes it's nice when there's hardly any in. Occasionally it gets equal. But most of the time it's just the extra girth, the extra low mids that I want, especially in the small cabs. In the small cabs, it allows more low mids that might not be there, but it also allows those small cabs to suddenly sound like huge guitar amps. So definitely try it. I haven't tried the Line 6 Helix yet. We're going to that, definitely. Definitely going there. As a rights producer, do you ever limit how many guitars you would stack, knowing if you had too many, you would never be able to pull it off live? No, because ultimately there's a different experience with live music. What I mean by that is when I go and see a band live, you have a benefit of one thing that you don't necessarily have in the recorded world. And what is that? You have the excitement level. You have people jumping around on stage. You have a crowded club, which is smelly and sweaty. You have alcohol. You have all of these things that make live amazing. You go to a shed, you go to a stadium, there's thousands and thousands of people. That adds to the excitement. There's lights, there's lasers, there's projection streams, there's all of this adds to excitement. So you don't have that when you put a pair of earbuds on. You just don't have that. So you compensate for these two different things. Live, you have volume on your side. You can literally annihilate the audience in a metal apocalypse kind of way with the loudest, most aggressive guitar sound you've ever heard, high mids and volume. When it comes to recorded music, you are combating that. The last thing you want to do is have a small guitar sound going, well, you can't replicate it live, because then people will go and see it live and think, oh, it's so much better than the recorded guitar sound. Even though it might be the same guitar sound, you've got other things. I have been to shows where I didn't notice mistakes. They didn't come out to me. And then I've heard a recording of the live show and there's tons of mistakes. I didn't notice it because I was wrapped up in this incredible performance of this guitar player, this amazing drummer, this incredible bass player, this incredible singer, the performance, the way they communicated with the audience, their light show, everything took me out of the zone, so I wasn't listening like I'm listening on earbuds. So just bear that in mind. It's a different experience. So the thing is, you're always trying to do the best possible thing for the music. So do what's best for the music. Annihilated yourself with on-stage music. I'm sure you did. Fantastic. If there are any, what do they call that? If there's any hyper chat kind of ones, and you want to ask any other stuff, live is definitely more forgiving. Thank you, Tika. Yeah, exactly. Live engineering, it's a different expectations, and you bring different things to it. Hey, I'd watch Jimmy Page on stage playing whatever he wanted any day of the week, and I'm fine. There's something about Jimmy Page that defies thing. When you talk about music, and this is the thing. When you talk about music purely and simply on technical abilities, you're really missing the point. And I know for a lot of people, they get very caught up in that stuff. But the reason why I like different kinds of music and different players and stuff is for all kinds of different things. Jeff Beck is one of my favorite guitar players. He's in my top 2, and it's him and Brian May, depending on which day of the week it is. And Tony Iommi's right up there, and Joe Pass is right up there, and Django Reinhardt is right up there. You know, all of these, Albert Lee is right up there. They're all different genres and different kind of guitar players. Alan Holdsworth is right up there. But I like them for different reasons. And some of them, Jimmy Page, Keith Richards, John Lennon, they all have different attributes. John Lennon, as a right-hand rhythm guitar player, possibly is the best rhythm guitar player ever. He just locked in to the song, and he also knew how to play guitar to his vocal and vice versa. And that's what a lot of musicians do not understand. They spend their lives practicing to metronomes and don't know how to work with a singer. And that is a big problem. It's a big problem with music schools that they don't teach that. They come out like only learning how to play. There's so much more to music than that. Hence why we don't all like the same music. Some of us gravitate towards technically based music. Some of us gravitate towards emotional based. And a lot of us, hopefully me and a lot of you here, live in the middle where you appreciate. I like prog. I love prog. But I also Plastic Ono Band. I have a signed copy on my wall, which is the rawest album Lennon ever made on Primal Scream, using the Primal Scream therapy, and is one of my favorite records for the exact opposite, because it's all emotion. And I think that is the stuff that's important. Music communicates on all levels, and we have to remember that. It's exactly why we talk about on YouTube, what I was talking about earlier today with the San Francisco Chronicle, is like you can do videos and stuff on YouTube based on technical, but to make great music, just knowing what to boost and cut is just the beginning of making great music. It's why, luckily, and fantastically, why I am able to have a channel, and why guys like Rick Beato have such successful channels, because he's just talking about music beyond, you know, he gets into stuff which is way far beyond kind of like, there's the 60 hertz on the kick and take the 100, you know, all of that stuff is just the beginning of music. Music has so many wonderful facets to it and so many wonderful things that you can learn. All right, so how's my hair? I don't know, you tell me. You tell me. This discussion on hair. Malcolm Young, Black Star. Ingwe don't like donuts. I don't know. I hate playing to the grid loses the groove. Absolutely. Here's about psychoacoustics, not simply acoustics. Sometimes I forget that, but it makes great sense when you're listening live versus listening to a recorded example you're giving. Thank you, Warren. Well, thank you. Yeah, Paul Weller is a great guitar player. Yeah, that is right, man. Dave Jordan recorded many, many amps together. All right, so let's do another giveaway. We're going to do 2 courses. We're doing the Love Me, I'm Rich Mixing in the Box course. We're doing the Mixing Classic Rocks course, both mixed entirely in the box. So anyone can follow. It's my thought process from beginning to end. I start off with blank tracks. You see me not using a template. You see me just doing it from scratch. So you can win both those courses. And McDSP have generously thrown in the 4020 Retro EQ. And I'm getting texted. Anyway, so what can we do? All right. We've done what microphone, and we've also, you know, if you use an emulator like a Kemper, an Axe Effects, or whatever, we've done that. Okay, so here's a good question. We've done guitar players, guitars. We've done microphones. This is completely off the wall because we haven't even touched on it. Pedals. What guitar pedal, and if you haven't used a guitar pedal, just say I haven't used a real guitar pedal, I've only used emulations. What guitar pedal, if you only could have one guitar pedal for recording guitars, just one guitar pedal, what would it be? What do you think is the #1 pedal? And I'll tell you afterwards what mine is. I won't give you, I'll give you a clue afterwards. The one pedal for guitar production that you think you couldn't live without. What is the one guitar pedal that you can't live without? Oh, there's a good answer. A Line 6 pod. The Framtone Cream Puff. Vox Wah, good one. Tube Screamer. A tuner, that's a good answer. The TS9, the 808, Whammy. You've only used emulation, that's okay. Tube Screamers, is there an emulation that you love? Tube Screamers, lots of Tube Screamers. Wah pedals. Sans Amp, good answer. Phase 90, Tube Screamer, overdrives. Tube Screamer, Whammy pedals. Lots of Tube Screamers, lots of wah pedals. T-Rex Replica, Tube Screamer, Whammy pedals, flanges, emulations, that's cool. TS9 Zoom. A tuner, tuner's a good answer. Korg, Tube Screamers, lots of Tube Screamers. Max on overdrive, yeah, those are good. Oh, Plexitone, Carl Martin, love that pedal. Chandler Tube Driver, Rangemaster, great answers. Blue Cats. And this can be plugins as well. If there's something you use on as a plugin. Mutron, those are great. Tube Screamer. Phase 90, Boss Chorus, Echoplex. Crybabies, Fuzz Pedals. Wampler Plexi Drive, those are great. Zen Drive Compressors, Univibes, also great. Noise Gate, that's good if you're a rock guitar player. Crybabies, Dodd Preamp. MXR, Delays for Days, Compressor to a Fuzz. Treble Booster, another good one. Storm Shadow 2K. What did Storm Shadow 2K say, Matt? What was it? So you won 2 courses and a free EQ, retro EQ from McDSP. MXR, Keeley. What did Storm Shadow 2K say? Anyway, so Amplitude, good answers. Sonox Dynamics, DS1. I love a DS1. Okay. So I wanted to hear what yours were. My one, and we're still going to do one more giveaway, so hang out. And by the way, please like and share. I'm going to show you my favorite guitar pedal. And it's not in here.
Which one is it?
The gain pedal, where did it go?
The gain pedal?
Where did my gain pedal go? How did that get removed? Carl Martin, the gain pedal. Where is it? Where the heck did that go? It's gone missing. My main pedal is missing. That's hilarious. I'm live. There it is. Okay. This is my main pedal that I use, and I can't believe it got taken out of the chain. They cleaned up the other day, so it's okay. Dun dun dun. So what that is just a gain pedal with some EQ. Now, don't get me wrong. It's really and Carl Martin are a favourite of mine. You know what I mean? I like them. They're built like a proverbial brick. You know what? Yeah, I know. Where's my gain pedal? But the point is, whether it be, there's a couple of people that said gain pedals, whether it be an MXR one or a Carl Martin, and this is just me, when you are using a tube amp, there's two great tools for using tube amps. Number one is some kind of gain pedal just to drive your amp harder, and number two, a treble booster. And a couple of people said treble booster. So why is that? Well, I can by shaping the input gain, I can really increase distortion. I can, with a simple EQ like this, I can really shape the sound of my amp. And as a lot of you know, the treble booster is Brian May's favorite thing. He has that one that you can have on the strap. He has the treble booster that you can use on the floor. And he uses those into AC30s. Now, he doesn't go into the treble input on the AC30. He goes into the normal input and drives it with the treble booster, and that's a huge part of getting extra gain. Remember, on his beautiful guitar that he made, the Red Special that he made with his dad, he's using Burns pickups, which are inherently a low output. They have tons and tons of tone, but they're a low output. One of the things a lot of guitar players like about low output pickups is that they don't, when they're really strong magnets, they have this tendency to pull the string to the magnet and actually reduce the sustain ever so slightly. But the low output ones, I've been told, and I'm not an expert, so I could be told I'm wrong, but I've been told, I'm not an expert, that with the lower output pickups is they allow more sustain. That was certainly the great Les Paul's theory when he made his recording Les Paul. The Les Paul recording has low impedance pickups and is a beautiful sounding guitar, and has now, since he unfortunately has died, become a very popular guitar. Something you could buy for pennies 10 years ago. Nobody cared. And now people are seeing just how beautiful that was and how smart Les Paul was. So my point is like this gain, this is called a boost kick, but as you can see, it's got level, it's got punch, attack, and edge, which are essentially just EQs. So treble booster and gain, for me, when using tube amps, is a big deal. And as you noticed, and this is something that will probably shock you, but as you noticed, when I was doing the bass thing the other day, the bass technique, if you saw in yesterday's video, please post that, Matt, from yesterday's video. You'll notice that the only thing I changed to get that bass sound, playing it on the D string, to do that kind of baritone emulation and add the toughness to my guitar sound, the only thing I changed was to insert a wah pedal. And sometimes I don't even use the wah pedal, I just plug the bass in and play it on the D. That's the only thing I changed. So often I've got an amp set up, like yesterday I had a Marshall JMP set up, and I had it set up, and the only thing I had to change was different guitars, and this changes my amp sound dramatically. So I plug in this pedal, You know what I mean? It's simple stuff. It's not always about having, you know, having to reorganize everything and change out the cabs. And, you know, I'll put my tone tubby up, front and back mic, or just a front mic on a 57. It tends to just get rid of some of that harshness on the high end, you know, and I'll do that. And then I'll add different pedals and or a different guitar. And you can just end up changing dramatically sounds very quickly and easily, because turning a pedal on and off and plugging in a second guitar or a bass is a lot quicker than rebalancing all of my gain structure when I'm being creative. So again, it doesn't mean that I don't use multiple amps. Of course I do. It doesn't mean that I'll use the same guitar through different amps. Of course I do. But just be mindful that you can, with just one amp and one microphone and a couple of pedals and two guitars, have infinite possibilities of sound. It's not always, as much as you see these guitars all over the walls, that Pacifica back there gets used because I want a guitar with a trem. Otherwise, this guitar is on 90% of what I record. And it just superseded my red Pacifica, which used to be on 90% of what I record. And now I've got this other rare Pacifica, the Christian setup, that's now a shredding guitar. So if I want to do some shredding stuff, I've now got light strings, low action, that. The point is like, you can do very, very remarkably different things with very, very few tools. As much as I've got 100 different pedals, or 100 different guitars, or 100 different amps. Well, I haven't got 100, but you know what I mean? I'm exaggerating, but the point is like sometimes just 2 or 3 subtle changes can make huge differences. So I say all that because it's really important for me to encourage people to make great music and not feel like they have to spend thousands of dollars to get stuff. Rob says, hey, I'm from Dublin. Unrelated question. Don't answer if you don't want to. Do you think it's possible to record a pro quality using addictive it went. Addicted drums or easy drummer? Yes, I do it all the time. You just there's lots of different tricks, and you can use like short delays and distort them and have them underneath. You just want to add some random, and you can use anything. Have a look at what Royal Blood does with guitar tones. Bass guitar, absolutely, yes. If it gets to tone wood, I'm unsubbing. I don't give a crap about that stuff. You know I don't. When you're talking to a guy that's making records with $200 used Pacificas, do you think I care about that crap? You know what I mean? This is my main tracking guitar for about 5 years, and I still like using it. Why do I like this guitar? Well, I like this guitar because it's got a Seymour Duncan humbucker in the back, and it's got like the P100 or P90, whatever, but I think it's called a P100. But the Seymour Duncan there, and a 3-way selector. It plays beautifully. It's my main tracking guitar. Plays beautiful, love it. It's got Wilkinson bridge, it's got Grover machine heads, and I believe new it was $600, $599. So definitely not getting into the disappear up the disappearing up our own butthole with well, you say this is specially aged in a sarcophagus from an Egyptian yeah. It's yeah, does it sound good? Does it inspire you? Yes, I do use virtual amps, and we're going to get onto a whole bunch of stuff about that. Would they teach me all this stuff in college, Warren? Because a lot of times I don't know the things you're talking about. Well, Tamar, I mean, I think ultimately what you get from me, first of all, when we're going to talk about college and stuff like that, I think it just comes down to the kind of personality you are. I've never been to any kinds of schools in my life, and I've taught at them, which has been fantastic. But ultimately, I like, you know, I was on an hour-long conversation with San Francisco Chronicle this morning doing an interview about YouTube, and the whole time I was talking, and I made a joke with it, with the guy interviewing me, was I was doing finger exercises, and you know, I kept it pretty quiet. But the point is like I'm always like learning. I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to pick up tips from anybody and everybody. And so for me, that's my mentality. There's a part of me that now, as I'm a little older and I'm past typical school age, wouldn't actually mind if financially I could do it, which I can't because I've got a family to support and a mortgage to pay. But if I didn't have to do that, I would actually go back to school, because now I've learned how to learn. So I think one of the things is when you're very young, a lot of people go to school and they haven't learned yet how to learn. It could be a whole video discussion. A whole video discussion. We could talk about learning how to learn. That's something you have to do yourself. Now, number one thing, if you talk about going to school, is like, if that's something you like, if you love going to schools, there's SAE, you know, there's Lars out here, there's so many great schools, there's so many great ways of doing things. It's all about, what do you like? We have Eric, who's one of our most, you know, successful engineers here. You know, he's done amazing stuff, and he went to Citrus College, which is like a is that community college? Is that the best way of describing it? Citrus?
Yeah.
So Citrus is a community college, and how much did it cost you a year to go?
It was free for me because I was
Free for you?
Yeah, low income.
Yeah, so if you're on a low income, free. So he got to do a music program for free. He also paid to do the recording connection, which I believe was about $7,000, and he came and he worked with me during that process, and I gave him a job. So that is another way of doing it. And then you got guys like me, or girls like you know what I mean? People, girls and girls like us, that don't learn that way. They have to just get in, stuck in, and do it. So the answer about a higher education and anything is, it just comes down to personality type and how you like to learn. And also how you like interacting with people. Some people like to interact on a purely creative environment, which means going into a studio and being with other musicians and engineers and bouncing ideas, or just shutting their mouth and listening and learning. You know, you can do that. I was in many situations where I was engineering and I was learning so much from the musicians and the producers around me. When I'm in a room with Steven Tyler and Jack Douglas, I shut up. I don't have an opinion. In fact, most of the time I try not to anyway. I try to let the artist lead it, because they have to be the one that feels comfortable. It's not my job to guide them, not to criticize them. You know what I mean? So you're always learning in those environments. So going to school is more about you as a person. Do you want to learn in that environment? Also, the other thing is the fellowship. You know, some schools provide incredible fellowship. Some are incredibly competitive. So it really comes down to, like somebody saying they wouldn't recommend a particular school. I think it comes down to individuals' experiences. Some people have told me that MI is the best experience they have, and then I had somebody tell me they weren't. I think it was what they brought to it. They weren't a big fan of that structure, and other people are fans of that structure. So I think it's really, yeah, somebody's saying learning means getting feedback. I think that's true. But a lot of that time, like in our academy, in the Produce Like a Pro Academy, it's the fact that there is a lot of people in there that are all learning off each other. Trevor, thank you. Trevor says, keep up the awesome videos. Thank you from, you know what, $2 I'm going to get. What am I going to get? I'm going to get myself. It's going to go towards my sandwich for lunch. Thank you ever so much. What are we talking about? So basically, it's really up to you. It's really, really up to you what your personality type is, what you prefer. If you're big on schools, then I think schools are fantastic. Now I would go back, being older, and just now I've learned how to learn. I wasn't a good kid at learning, so it's very different for us. Yeah, competitiveness. That's another thing about the academy, is we don't encourage the competitiveness. We encourage people, you know, being supportive of each other. How about learning from professors who have real experience in the business? Yeah, well, that's why I think there's a lot of why they bring in. I did a 2-hour talk at Leeds University, and it was very successful, and a lot of people were very, very complimentary. And so, you know, and I've done it. I went to Citrus College, where Andrew went. These are good things. I've done one at MI. Because, you know, they're bringing in people that actually make money in the music industry. And I think that that gives a lot of help, because we're showing people what it's actually like to work it. That is the whole point of Produce Like a Pro, because I'm not a professional teacher and I'm not trying to monetize you from my YouTube channel by looking at people like me and figuring out how to do slicker versions of my videos. I do this purely and simply, that's why I love the live streaming, to show you what it's actually like. Tip jar, thank you, Michael B. You are very generous, my friend. $1.99, I like the 99. Would I recommend homeschooling for music? Yes, if you've got people that can really help you. Okay, so let's get back to recording production techniques. Why don't we do our last giveaway? Okay, so we've done, what can we do for our last giveaway? Okay, we've done virtual, we've done 57s, we've done, you know, microphones, we've done all the kind of different things. And this is for guitar players and non-guitar players alike. And if you don't have an answer, you can still answer by saying, hey, I've never done this. So the question is, what is your favorite guitar to record? What do you think is the most versatile guitar that you've used, even if it's just for your genre? What is your favorite guitar that you've recorded? And if you've never recorded guitar, just answer, I haven't recorded guitar. And please like and share. Please like and share. So what is your favorite guitar you've ever recorded? What do you think is the most versatile guitar? What is that favorite guitar? And if you haven't recorded guitar, that's okay. Just say, I haven't yet recorded guitar. You know, it's okay. You can just say that. And that's, you still get entered in to win this, because this is not about only guitar players. So please let me, what is it? Oh, Tony built his. Whose favorite? Whatever you think is the most versatile, or even the most favorite. How about that? Favorite or versatile? It's just like, it's the guitar that you love. You plugged in, you thought it was amazing, somebody else plugged in. What is it? And if you don't have one, it's okay. Just say, I've never recorded guitar. It's okay. This is open to everybody. Boo! Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. These donations go a long way. You can buy me my lunch. Will says he likes recording with the telly. Actually, I do love recording guitar. Not yet recorded guitar. Well, we're here to help you. Electric Lady guitar, nice. Washburn. I grew up with Washburns. Washburns were the other company when I was a kid with Yamaha. Those were the two companies in England that impressed me the most. Have not recorded guitar yet. All right, we'll get you on recording guitars. Telecasters, Duesenbergs, Telecasters, Strats, Les Paul Studios, very affordable, like those. Les Paul 25, 50th anniversary, Les Paul Classic, Tom Anderson. Tom Anderson's are really good guitars. Thin Line, oh, I love Thin Lines. 68 Telly's beautiful. Telly with a little 59, 120, Gretsch, love recording Les Paul style guitars, yeah? You've won 2 courses, who is it, who won it? Dagmar Stinskoske. I'm sorry I can't pronounce that properly. I still want to know though, what is the guitars that you love recording? I'm going to grab my acoustic, even though we're talking about electrics. Cool. So let's round this off. Let's round this up. So now with recording guitars, because we were talking about the great Dave Jordan, I'll tell you what I know about recording guitars with Dave, coming from a perspective of somebody that I work with Dave on an engineering front as well as a guitar playing front. And Brian Kohlstrom and I used to produce stuff together. We did a lot of stuff together, and I learned a lot from him. And we did. I used to play guitar and co-write the songs, and he was my producing partner for a few years. I learned a lot from working with Brian Kohlstrom, and he was Dave's engineer on a lot of those big records. Dirt in particular, for those of you that know Alice in Chains' Dirt. Now, Dave used to do, when he did Dirt, he used a lot of different amps at the same time. He used small open back cabs, like things like Pro Juniors and small amps like that, and Champs, very, very small amps, 57 front and back, and then blend them. He also used to use things like Bogners and these like really heavy rock big amps, and he would put 412s up. And one of the things he did is he had a 412 cab, And in that cab, it had 4 different speakers. So not only would he mic it up, he would choose the speaker he wanted. It's a great idea. He used to have a blue Bulldog, a Vox, you know, AC30 speaker. He had a blue Bulldog in there. And then he would have a vintage 30 and a vintage 25, and I believe he had an Eminence. But he would move, particularly between those 3 speakers, the 25, the 30, and the Bulldog, and he would choose which one he wanted or which combination he wanted. So we're already talking about a big rock amp like Bogner's and things like that, as well as Marshalls, blended with small amps like Champs front and back miking. Also, and this is the last thing that doesn't get talked about, he used to use those big ugly 60s Vox amps that they made in America. These were those huge like Vox Beetle amps that were solid state. Not a particularly beautiful sounding amp, a solid state, very, very loud amp with those huge cabs. Remember the big Beetle cabs? And they swung in the middle? He used those as well. He used up to 5 different sources aside to create that one massive guitar sound. When you got that that yeah, go listen to Man in a Box and hear that massive guitar sound, and that was, at that time, completely revolutionary. You've got to remember it in context. Nobody had that kind of guitar sound. So it was very, very unique for that period. And Dave was blending up to 5 different things aside. And, of course, a lot of the times it was also guitar choices. I love PV Bandits, Mark. One of my favorite amps I ever had was a Classic 65. I loved that amp, and I toured with that amp for years. Again, it's like if you go and watch the Joe Barresi video I did about a year ago. What do I think of John Mayer's guitar player? He's great. He's a great guitar player. Go and watch the Joe Barresi video I did. Ron, I know I see it. I'll answer the question. Do you prefer to use EQ or blend mics to achieve specific tones? I'll tell you about the Peter Frampton, Joe Walsh thing in a minute. I've done the voice box with Joe Perry. We did that, and basically it's just miking an amp that he puts it through. He puts it through a very specific small amp, and we mic'd it. Yeah, use the ugly guitar tone and blend it. You like it when I go into my Man in the Box impersonation? Hey, yeah, Lane Staley. I personally think of that period, Lane Staley was the singer. I know he died after Kurt Cobain, but Lane Staley's voice was just absolutely amazing. Unbelievable. When I was working in Seattle in the early 2000s, I actually went to that bar where he was. It was in the sort of the university district, and he was sitting in that bar in the back. It was very, very sad, and I heard terrible things about it. I'm just having a great time playing my LL16. See, I can't, all musicians are a little ADD. It's kind of what we do. We can have conversations and we'll just want to play guitar here. Stock rhythm guitar, Jerry Finn Pultec EQ points. Very interesting, really good, really good conversation. I think and Jerry Finn was one of the great guitar recorders. That's a really good question, because he did some of our favorite 90s stuff. I would say without exception, he may be the engineer of the 90s when it comes to rock. He definitely was one of the really, really great ones. And Jerry, you know, with Pultecs, and I'm looking over here to my Pultec as I'm talking. Now I have 1A3s here on my mix bus, and you're talking like 100 hertz boosts, and then you got 3 to 16K boost on the top. I probably, for the classic kind of guitar tones, not metal, but classic guitar tones, I'm usually boosting at 5K-ish. That's where 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but definitely on 5 on a Pultec gives me that gives me that Marshall disgusting sound that I like, aggressive sound. And a bit of 100, when used broad, will give you a lot of the low end stuff. And you are making a very, very good point there. That's a really good question, talking about Jerry Thin and talking about that, because we talked about this a lot before, that a lot of the guitar sounds that we're trying to achieve were actually dependent on the tools that were available. So what do I mean by that? So if you want to go for like classic Aerosmith tones from the 70s, then stay on API EQs, Spectrasonic EQs, because that's what they were using in America. I know because I'm friends with the guys that made the records. It's not an opinion. It's like, I know because Jack told me they were using API consoles and Spectrasonics consoles. They also used, oh, what is it called? I'm blanking, I'm really sorry, and somebody's been reissuing their stuff. Oh, it's terrible, I forgot the name. I hate this because they've been reissued. We actually used the compressor. I'm really sorry. Sorry, I should have thought about this before going live. There was another set of EQs and compressors and mic pre's that Jack was using a lot for those classic guitar tones. So when you were in New York at the record plant and the power station, a lot of that stuff was dictated by that. So look at those pieces of equipment. Look at those pieces of equipment and look at the EQ points and realize, as that great question was talking about Jerry Thin, that those are the places that they would have been boosting or cutting. And those had a lot to do with they had a lot to do with the guitar sounds and the bass sounds and the drum sounds. If you're looking over at your 1073, for instance, and the kick drum has a 60 and you want to boost it, that's where, thank you ever so much, I'm glad you enjoyed the Save Me track. It wasn't Altec. I wish I could remember what it is. I'm terrible and I can't remember what it is. Can anybody remember what it was? You know what it is? The bass sound is a huge part on Sweet Emotion. A huge part of it has got to do with that particular piece of equipment. So anybody can remember what was the compressor on the bass sound of Sweet Emotion? There's a good question for you. Does anybody remember what it was? Because I don't. I used it, and it was the compressor was used on Sweet Emotion. So my point is like, there was a really, really great question that came up a minute ago. Is like, look at the Pultec EQ points, look at Neve EQ points, and look at API EQs. Flickinger! Woo! There it is. Okay, Matt. Did anybody else say Flickinger, or was that the first one? Okay, Matt, are you with me? Give that first gentleman a free course. The first person that said it. Thank you, Flickinger. Just give him a free course, please. Thank you ever so much. Yeah, Flickinger. So yes, it was a Flickinger, and they've been reissued, and I can't remember who it is. No, you got it right first, JPM. And Gavin Jack, I'm sorry you came in a close second, but both of you, I appreciate your research for me. But yes, it was Flickinger. So you think about it, look at the Flickinger stuff, and realize that was on a lot of the classic API stuff. Classic 70s Aerosmith stuff and Cheap Trick. Look at Spectrasonic stuff, which is still made. Look at APIs, and that's a lot to do with the sound of American recordings of that period. So you can look at it and you can find, you know, different plugins that emulate that, and this is good. I love this idea. People engaged here, that we can give you a free prize for being so engaged. This is so fantastic. But anyway, so basically, that is a really great question that got asked, because it's pointing us towards this, and it was Cynosure Anthem. Is that right? Cynosure Anthem. Really good question, because this is how if you want to achieve classic AC/DC drum sounds, that was asked of me a couple of weeks ago, is go and look at where they were recording. And a lot of the time, especially if they're recording in England, they were recording with Neve consoles. Not necessarily mixing, but Back in Black, I've read many times, was recorded in an MCI. So go and look at the MCI EQ points and see. But then it may have been mixed, I believe, on a Neve. You get to see where these EQ points are, and it's a lot to shape the sound, because they weren't using fully parametric. Can you let Izzy in? She's standing there. Oh, she's coming. It's okay. And so, you know, so it's really, really, who makes, oh, Skibby. Skibby makes Flickinger now. So these are really, really, you're very welcome, JPM. I really appreciate everybody here. This community is amazing. And thank you for being so engaged that you're listening to me and answering this stuff. But anyway, go down. This is where researching some stuff is really useful. Finding out where they recorded and knowing a little bit about the gear they had will help you if you want to emulate those sounds. And the fact that you can now get plugins, McDSP's on here, Waves, all of these people that make emulations, analog emulations, you can now get in there and find those EQ points and start experimenting and realizing that's how a big point you're going to end up mixing something that sounds like something you love. Really, really good. All right, so we've done all 3 giveaways. How do you determine the right BPM for a song? I literally will sit there with the singer and the guitar player, sometimes the same person, and just sit there and play through the song with them and tap it out. And when it feels good, lock into that tempo. Simple as that. You were never this good at listening in classroom. I think that's what it is we're talking about. The thing is, when we're talking about school and stuff, is not everybody has that ability, you know, to necessarily learn in that way. We want to have a little bit more to and fro. We want this sort of level of communication that you all bring here in this community. This really is all about you. It really is. It really is all about you. Do you ever pull out certain frequencies you won't sound good on cheap speakers? That was mentioned in one of your interviews, but I can't remember the frequency mentioned. I mean, one of the ugly frequencies is low mids in the wrong areas. Low mids can be really nice on bass guitars to fill stuff in, but it can be really ugly on drums and vocals. You know, it really depends. In general, low mids are really ugly, but I know a lot of people just talk about fixing it all in the mix bus. Try not to do that. Try not to always fix things in grouping. Try not to always fix things only on mix bus. Try to fix issues on individual channels, because think about it, if you've got a guitar that's got an ugly or a vocal that's going, if you pull it out on the mix bus only, it's going to be times where it's going to sound hollow, and there's going to be times when it sounds good. Because if the guitar is coming and going and only playing that ugliness at certain areas, doing it on your mix bus and focusing on the chorus only means the verse will suffer. Try definitely starting from an individual source. If there's some ugly low mids going on in your guitars, go to the guitars and pull it out. Go to the individual track and pull it out. Don't be worried about the video that shows you a phase problem if you don't hear it. Remember, you don't look at music, you only hear it. So, you know, yeah, individual channels, individual tracks, the individual tracks, Rick. So if there's a low mid issue in your guitars, pull it out on the guitar mic that has the problem. And then you can do it on a bussing if you like, but remember, the later you leave it, you're only putting a band-aid on it. Find out where the issue is on the first source, then your group, then your master. Don't try and fix it on the master. And there's been a proliferation of videos talking about that recently. That is the wrong way of doing it. It's only going to solve it at certain times. Go to the source, figure out what frequency is low mids. Low mids is typically anywhere from about 250 to about 600-700. It really depends. Everybody's going to have a various different opinion on that, but that is kind of the area. Typically 300-400 is ugly when there's a build up in it. It gets really ugly. It's fine in certain instruments. It's terrible with a build up. And yes, you can do it on your master bus as a last resort. If you're feeling a lot of build up there, go and figure out where it's happening. You want to learn how to properly EQ things in stages. It's like anything when it comes to recording and mixing. You want to start off with a great microphone placed in the right place, going into a nice mic pre or a nice mic pre emulation or whatever it's got, and build from there. And a great microphone doesn't have to be expensive. A 57 can be bought used at $100. So the point is like, it's not all about necessarily money, but it's all about starting off with a great performance by a great musician, mic'd up nicely, blah, 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 blah. It's all about getting back, keeping that consistency. So low mid build up, solve it at the source. Don't solve it on the master bus. If you're doing it only on the master bus, you're really just mastering, and let the mastering engineer do that, or do it as a separate problem. I'm learned listening and hearing in general on post-production sound. Took 2 to 3 years to understand how frequencies work and how to isolate them in the head. Yeah. Do I ever put things out of phase on purpose? 350 on bass can be good to lock into your guitars. Yeah, it can be. I know a lot of people do 300 to 400 on that to get up. Wah, 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 wah. It's there if you're just trying to put it together. TH3, I'm not sure what that is. Sansam CS3, cheap substitute 57. Great, thank you for the tip. Trick high mids on the snare without getting harsh bleed from a hi-hat. I mean, that really comes down to mic placement, you know? Mic placement, make sure that you're not getting too much bleed. If your drummer's playing your hi-hat louder than the snare drum, then you've got 2 things. You need to tell them to play the hi-hat softer, help them do that. Make sure the hi-hat isn't just sitting next to the snare like that. Session drummers have the hi-hats here and the snares down there. They've been taught that, and engineers have beaten them up over the years, so they move the hi-hat away from the snare. So that's the first thing. When you're recording, try to get it as far away as you possibly can. You know, there's tons and tons of different things. Second-hand 57 is a good substitute for a 57. Yes, very true. Light reverb on drums, of course. Do left and right guitars need to sound huge when checking in mono? Yeah, if you check them in mono and you get phase cancellation, you've got to figure out why. Oh, one of the things that came up in discussion the other day was somebody asking about what about using the same source 3 times? Try to avoid that in all cases. I have occasionally where I've only got one like part playing and I can't find a way of doubling it. I will sometimes pan it opposite, run a delay on it, but also I have to run a pitch on it so they get away from each other. If I just run a delay on it and the delay is very close, you'll get some phase cancellation. You'll get like a frequency and a frequency like this that are slightly offset, and you get mid-range phase cancellation. Using MS techniques and widening plugins, for instance, put your mix into mono, your guitars might disappear. That's not good. So if I am going to widen something like that, I make sure that there's some pitch change as well. Then when I put them into the middle, there might be some chorusing, but it does not disappear. So just check it. You want to be checking in mono. I don't ever mix in mono, but I check in mono. And most of my friends and most of the people I know, you know, most of the people I know like that. With Mattis Yahoo, I didn't meet Mattis. So basically what I did is I recorded the rock version of One Day that was on the radio, the big song One Day. The rock version that you heard on the radio that sold the albums was the version I recorded at Sunset Sound, but I never met him. But he did write it with Bruno, and Bruno came down, Bruno Mars, and Bruno was there while we were recording and was a great help. And is a sweetheart. Bruno's one of the sweetest and easiest guys to work with. But Mattis did not come down, so when I recorded that, we had the dance music, the EDM version they have on the album, and we took that and we recorded real instruments to it at Sunset Sound. I'm trying to remember all the players on it. I believe it was Blair. Was it Blair Sinter? John Button? I don't remember everybody on it at the top of my head, but that was the version that you heard all over the radio. Unfortunately, it didn't get put onto the album. They just wanted to keep the pop version. Mattis didn't want the rock version. When I say rock, it wasn't like rock. It was just real instruments put into it, but it did really, really well on the radio. Was I on the radio? There's been plenty of things I've recorded that have been on the radio. I've done the Fray, James Blunt. That's why I have these gold platinum disc things up. I have some of them. I've got to get like another 10 or 20. We need to research that, but it takes a while to figure them all out. It took us a long enough time to get these 3 here and that #1's plaque and then the ones in the house. It takes a while to research and get them all together. Anyway, thank you ever so much, everybody. This has been absolutely amazing. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. And if you have subscribed, hit that notification bell and you'll be notified when we do another video. I haven't looked here, but I will now. Just give me a second. I'm going to look here. There's 354 of you watching. Please like and subscribe. There's only 255 likes, so please like and share. I would really appreciate it. And if you have subscribed, hit notification bell. It's the delay is hilarious. Well, I listen to myself delayed. So thank you ever so much, everybody. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you. Have a marvellous time recording and mixing. Do I have equipment that goes to 11? No. But I want to. Do you have any? You have any stuff that goes to 11? Be absolutely amazing. Thank you, everybody. We're going to do another one on Thursday, so please come back with Thursday. How was Robert Johnson recorded? Probably with just one mic. Goodness knows what it was. Yes, almost 200,000K subs, and we're going to do a lot of giveaways in celebration. So please like and share, and if you haven't subbed already, please sub. It's absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it. We're trying to do as many of these live ones as possible because I realize this is the spirit of YouTube now. It really is. It's keeping that sort of gritty thing that YouTube used to be, you know, before it started getting very slick. It was this, wasn't it? You used to tune in when I first got here like 3 or 4 years ago, about 3.5 years ago we started. It was all about, yeah, I love the Nothingizer. It was all about this, you know what I mean? It was really all about this spirit of just being able to communicate with people and let them know what, you know, let them know what you really do and what you really believe, you know. But thank you ever so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being so incredibly supportive and being an amazing part of our community. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, come back and see us again in a few days. We'll talk more about recording. I love this. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you for everybody that donated towards the channel. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you. Who do we get? Who are all our donators? Oh, does it not let me see it easily? Nah, looks like... Oh, that's a bummer. So thank you everybody that donated. Yes, I have used an HM2 on guitars. I've used every pedal you can think of pretty much. So thank you, and I'm glad you liked the haircut, Kevin. Thank you. And have a marvellous time recording and mixing. Like I said, please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. You're all absolutely marvellous. See you in a couple of days. There is a wonderful, incredible, amazing giveaway coming out tomorrow, which is, oh, we know who the dislikers are. It's okay. I'm glad. It means that we're doing something right. It means that other people are upset that we're doing something right and we're giving away all this free information. That's the way I look at it. It's like, you know, this is the democratization of the music industry, and it's absolutely amazing. And I really appreciate all of you for being here and being so supportive. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and I'll speak to you all again very, 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 very soon.